Hi everyone, this is StarCraftDad and welcome back for some more replay analysis. Today I'll be going through a series of games that I played over the last few days, starting with this one, Terran vs. Protoss on the map Xel'Naga Caverns. As I'll be going through a series of games, I'm going to pump up the speed here. So, in my previous cast, you'll remember that I had my strategy for Protoss, which worked pretty well, was to build a Ghost and a bunch of Marines and come in for an early attack, trying to catch the Protoss before they really established their base and built up their death ball. Now, in this game, we're going to see MxMstrSwtch, who's an experienced Silver League player, build a wonderful counter to that, and that is the Protoss 4-gate. So the basic idea of the strategy is that Protoss is going to build as fast as they can a cybernetics core and research the warp gate technology that you can see him starting here, and build 4 warp gates. Build 4 gateways, turn them into warp gates, send a handful of units over to my base, and bring along a probe to build a proxy pylon closer to the base. And then, through experimentation, players have discovered that 4 gateways is a good balance of how many maximum gateways you can keep busy at a constant rate from a single base and 1 or 2 gas. So you can see he's adding a couple of stalkers and he's bringing along this probe to build this proxy pylon. He encounters my little group up here, pushes them off, and back here he's going to build this proxy pylon. So this pylon allows him to warp in units closer to my base, which reduces the walking time that his units have to walk before they come in to hit my base. So we can see here at the 8-minute mark, he's hitting the front door with 11 stalkers and 2 zealots. The rest of the game is pretty much just kind of cut and dry after that. This group he pushes in a couple of times, brings in some more reinforcements, and there you can see the 4-gate in action. Being able to warp in units fairly close to the opponent's base, not giving them much time to make units or to repair damaged buildings or to build a defense, and just completely overwhelming your opponent with early aggression and taking advantage of that warp gate technology. So after playing this game, I really wondered, okay, wow, once I watched the replay, realized what it was, this 4-gate strategy, I was like, well, what can I do against that? And so one option I had was to go through this replay, analyze the timelines, and try to tweak my own timeline on my build with my units and buildings to try to figure out a way to counter it. But I thought, let's try something a little bit different. Let's try something new. Let's bring this experiment to the ladder. So what I did is I took my hand, or I tried to play Protoss myself and see what other players' reactions to this 4-gate would be. So this first couple of games we'll look at is Protoss versus Protoss. Now in this case, I do kind of feel sorry for this guy. So this is GalodelCielo, and he is new to the game. Well, I'll go ahead and speed up the clock here. And so I did have to kind of explain to him at the beginning, not just that I was doing this for a blog as an experiment, but also, what a 4-gate is, because he's like, I'm new, by the way. So, a new player, one of the reactions to 4-gate is to try to go defensive, right? So, Protoss player, he's going to build a wall with a couple of pylons and a gate. He's going to go for a force, so he's going to try to build some cannons and try to stave off this initial attack, which is a pretty good defense and a good option. He's going to need to build some defensive units, which, being an earlier player, he wasn't quite there. But if you look here, he's got a lot of minerals, so he could have had quite a few units back here at the base defending. And that's one of the key things. I mean, even a beginner player, had he kept up on his macro, knowing that a 4-gate is coming, knowing that these units are going to come in for an attack, and you can see here, he's saying, is there an attack coming? And I think that really shows that even for a player who's new to the game, being able to scout your opponent and see that something's coming, he may not know the term 4-gate, but had he done some scouting and seen this massive set of gateways coming and known that a group of units might be coming or suspected it, he can build up this defense. I mean, most of these other buildings he kind of built afterwards. So, even had there been a little bit of lag before he figured out that this attack was coming, he could have built this wall and had some defensive units ready to go. So, we can see here this very first attack with a couple of zealots and some stalkers actually got held off pretty well with just 2 cannons. And this wall, and you can turn on the hit points to see the wall didn't really get that much damage. Had I focused on one or the other, I would have pulled it down. But these two cannons did a fairly good job of holding off the attack. But here you can see that the advantage of the warp gate, being able to warp in units directly at your opponent's base, is just, a little too much. And two cannons, you tried to build another one here. Two cannons is just not going to be able to hold this off. But I think if he had added a few more cannons and a few more units in the back to kind of stave off the series of attacks, he would have done much better. But there you can see the power of scouting. And once you see that your opponent is bringing in a force to attack your base, you can build up some kind of defense. So, I mean, this kind of goes back to scouting. 4-gate is, a strategy that's based on attacking quickly before your opponent kind of realizes what's happening. And if they don't scout it, they're going to be in trouble. Because as you saw in my case, I went for kind of a tech-heavy build and wasn't ready for that first attack, not even remotely ready for that first attack, even though I had, a bunch of buildings in tech, researching it, even though I had the Ghost, which had that EMP, which was really good. Unless, I even scouted the base. I mean, I really should have known that this was coming. So, but you can see the power of scouting and reacting to what you scout. So when you're scouting an opponent's base and you kind of see what's going on, you should have some kind of reaction to that. What am I going to do with that knowledge that I see in that base? So now in this case, I'm playing against a Silver League player, Sambaa, and admittedly this is my first time playing a 4-gate, my first time playing Protoss in the ladder in like ages. I basically haven't played Protoss on the ladder. But here you can see Sambaa, he knows what he's doing. When I say 4-gate, he knows what's going on. So his counter is to go for these 3 gates. He's building this stuff really quickly. And going for his own warp gate technology, you can see it's already done. So he's warping in units. And his counter, we'll slow the clock down just a little bit, his counter is to build a robo. So he's not going 4-gate. If you look down at my base, I'm slow, I'm a little bit behind, but I've got my 4 gates. It's about that 6.5 minute mark. So I'm making my way across the map. So, his response to 4 gates is 3-gate robo. So he builds 3 warp gates. He's warping in units just like I would be doing, but he's added this robotics facility, and we'll be making this immortal. So immortals do a whopping 50 damage versus armored units. You can see these stalkers only have 80 hit points, 80 shields, and so immortals just rip right through stalkers. They also have this protective hardened shield, which limits incoming damage to 10 while the shield is up. So normally stalkers would do 14 damage against an immortal, but in this case, because of that shield, they're only going to do 10. And immortals have you can see here, they have a lot of hit points and a lot of shields. So, this immortal would turn this battle around. Now, forgiving the fact that this was my first 4-gate, and I went ahead and built this extra pylon for some reason, I would have a bunch more, about 100 more minerals, so I'd have 1,200 minerals, 400 gas. I could have come in with, say, 11 stalkers, but even had I had 11 stalkers, you can see here he's got 10, just as much as I did, basically. But instead of a handful of zealots, he's got this immortal, and that immortal would completely turn the tide of battle in his favor had I had a balanced force against his. So, there's your Protoss counter for 4-gate, 3-gate robo, and again, seeing that experience and having some scouting knowledge of what's coming is very handy indeed. So that's great for Protoss, but me being a Terran player, I wanted to see what was the counter to a 4-gate on the Terran side. So the first game I played against a Terran player was against Whisk, who unfortunately, kind of like GalodelCielo, he was a new player. This was his qualifier game, so 0 wins in the league, and you can see I'm actually, in a way, I'm distracting him by saying, hey, I'm doing this for a vlog, and he's like, whoa, wait a second, what's going on? So, but he had kind of an interesting reaction, as a new player. He sends this, whoa, fast forward here. He sends this SUV out scouting, but then he decides, I'm going to set up shop at this other base. So, this will kind of be an interesting example of what's going on here. And I see that with this probe. I see that he's got this other base over here. So this was my third attempt at a 4-gate. So you can see at the 6-minute mark, I've got my gates running up. I'm a little behind. Oh, I got that warp gate technology. So, you know, I send my initial force out, a bunch of stalkers and some zealots, and they're going to come in and clean up this first base. But that, you know, again, is kind of beside the point. What I think is more interesting is that he's got this defense that he's set up back here with these 2 barracks pumping out Marines and building these 2 bunkers. So, you know, the question is, you know, let's kind of imagine that this attack was my first attack. I had built, you know, waited a round or 2 to get a bunch of stalkers, so I'm up to 11. You know, how would this do? You know, how would this do against, you know, 2 bunkers and a bunch of Marines? So you can see that I've got the hit point tabs up. I've got a damage stalker here, but that's just fine. So you can see these stalkers are going to focus down on this barracks, and with their bonus damage versus armored, they just really rip that apart. You know, these Marines are doing a pretty good job. You know, I think he's focus firing. You can see all the damage coming off one stalker at a time. And had this bunker back here been in range of these stalkers, he would have done some more damage. So, you know, even for a beginning player, knowing that an attacking group is coming and building up, you know, a pretty good defense, I think he could have held off this first wave. But, you know, the trick of the 4-gate is it's not just the first wave, it's the second wave and it's the third wave. So as I continue, I mean, I really wasn't warping in units here, but as I continue to warp in units, you know, even a couple of bunkers and a bunch of Marines are going to have a hard time holding that off. So after playing this game, you know, I really wasn't encouraged about this situation of, you know, playing against a 4-gate as a Terran. But thankfully I played my last game, which was against a silver player, Skybound, who, you know, once again, you know, this showcases the power of kind of having an idea of what your opponent is doing and being able to scout out when that happens. So with all these games, I told the players that I'm, you know, playing this for a blog. You know, I'm Protoss, I'm going to be doing a 4-gate. You know, and this guy is totally hilarious. I'm like, so I'm doing this 4-gate for my blog, and he's like, well, try it. You know? I'm like, please stop me, and he's like, yeah, I am going to do that. So, you know, here you can see the 4-gate running. That's not super interesting. So, you know, it's a pretty common Terran start is to go ahead and build 2 barracks at the base to build a bunch of Marines to hold off some early aggression or do some early aggression of your own. But in his case, he's got this foreknowledge that I'm going to be doing a 4-gate, so he builds this 3rd barracks. Now, actually, in reality, if we look at his vision, he sent this scouting SCV over to see what I was doing. So even if I hadn't told him that I was doing 4-gate, you know, once he brings in that SCV and he can see that I've got a cybernetics core and these 2 gateways, he can think that there's a possibility that I'm going to come in with some early pressure. And so I don't think it's unreasonable to think that he might go ahead and build a 3rd barracks. Of course, now he's building a 4th to try to stop that and stave that off. So he's got a bunch of Marines and an SCV, and we're going to see, you know, him coming in for an attack and see how well that does. Now you see that here I'm only at the 5.5 minute mark, and he's got an attacking group ready to go. And if we look at the army tab, he's got quite a bit more army supply than I do. So, you know, even had this 4-gate been perfectly planned, I mean, at the 6-minute mark, you know, I've got a handful of units. This would be the group that would be marching across the map to hit his base and start the proxy pylon, etc. So I'm planning on having an attacking group by minute 8. Now at minute 6, though, he comes in trying to catch my group off guard. So this is a smaller group. This was a smaller initial group, right? So 4-gate is you send a small initial group, then you send in wave after wave after wave of reinforcements. But you know, if the opposing player can catch that small group before they get too big, you know, Terran's got a fairly decent chance of holding them off. So it would have been the 2nd wave and the 3rd wave that would cause him a whole lot of trouble. But since he hit this wave before they kind of got started, you know, he's going to do pretty well and hold this off just fine. So, you know, that's one way for a Terran to counter this 4-gate build, is to, you know, once again scout the base, see the building structures that they're building, you know, suspecting some early pressure, be scouting around the front of your base, looking for proxy pylons, looking for a small gaggle of units that you can take out with your defending force. So, you know, that was a fun little experiment on the ladder, and thanks to the 5 players, MxMstrSwtch, Sambaa, Whisk, GalodelCielo, and Skybound for playing along with this little experiment. And, you know, I think I got to learn a little bit about 4-gate and the responses to it, and also I got to try it out for myself. And so in general on the ladder, yeah, you meet, you know, players that are inexperienced and you kind of stomp them. That's just kind of the way the ladder works. But you also meet players that are better than you, and you can really learn from their reactions to your game and watch these replays and learn how to play the game better yourself. So hope you enjoyed that replay analysis, and this is StarCraftDad signing off, and we'll talk to you guys next time.